Okay.
Yes.
Scorpions, baby. Do you guys remember that song?
No.
Nope.
No. I don't. Which one?
I remember the ballads.
You guys don't remember Scorpions. That's right.
No, we do remember Scorpions. We don't remember that song, though.
Okay. Well, you're going to have to listen to it on YouTube. It's like one of their classics. It's called...
one of their classics.
Famous.
Yeah. Really famous. Like,
yeah. I think it's called Missing
You Like
You.
a Hurricane.
Yeah. Anyways, hey, welcome everyone to IoT Coffee Talk.
Welcome, City by the Bay. We rocked you.
Yes. California, do you want to rock? You know what I really loved back in the day is Klaus Meine would get up there. If you don't know who Klaus Meine is, he's the lead singer. He was or is the lead singer for the Scorpions. He would get up on stage. He'd go, California, and people would be in the audience go, what the hell did he just say?
Yes.
You know, he has that really thick German accent.
Exactly. But then we could hear him perfectly when he's singing. When he's singing like Winds of Change and stuff like that. It's very clear.
Yeah. Holiday and Still Loving You.
Yeah.
Remember that? Man.
Yes. Yeah, I do. Absolutely.
You do?
Of course I do.
Mark.
Yeah, of course. These are the well-known songs, right?
Yeah.
Really? Then how come you didn't? Oh, well, you don't know this one.
Mark has those songs on his Zune, and he listens to them every day when he's running through the park.
Yeah. But you know what? They had some great guitar players. I mean, they did some really amazing stuff.
Yeah.
And, you know.
I call it kind of a plastic rock or plastic heavy. Like it for me, it's like I match these Scorpions with Europe. I don't know if you know Europe.
Yeah.
And for me, it looks like they are playing like toy guitars or something like that.
Yeah, you mean like like candy. It's like candy metal, like candy pop, right? Sort of.
Exactly.
But not really. The Scorpions are pretty good.
They're pretty hardcore.
No, absolutely. No, in Europe, it's awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Way to rock. So what is going on in IoT this week?
Oh my gosh. Let me think. Last week was AWS announcing private 5G network offering, as well as their
who didn't announce 5G network?
Cloud WAN, wide area.
Twin Builder. And then yesterday, AWS is gone. It's offline. Nothing works. Nothing works. Everybody's going, my stuff doesn't work anymore. It's all dependent on AWS. It's interesting how they do dog fooding, right? And even their own systems didn't work. So yeah, it's a pretty tough day for AWS yesterday.
Why is that a surprise?
No, that shouldn't be a surprise. But it's funny.
And I'm sure it's going to happen more often. I hate to say it, but it will.
Wow.
Those things are going to become much more of a target, like entire. I mean, think about it. It's like it's just such a rich target for a hacker. It only takes one guy to get in there, or one person to get in there and compromise and attack a lot of tenant systems.
It was a hacker
scary
who
stuff.
did that, or
I think it was just their own people trying to do an upgrade or something. That's what usually happens. Yeah. Or a certificate expires, or a network change screws up the DNS and nobody can.
Yeah. And then there's that too.
There's that too. Well, I mean, more times than not, that's when you see these outages of these hyperscale clouds. It's a stupid, simple upgrade that somebody either screwed up or forgot to do or whatever. It's probably David's fault.
Yeah, I think it's David's fault.
If it has anything to do with Matt, I couldn't have my lunch break and I just unplugged something.
Yeah, right. Just unplug.
There goes a region.
Exactly.
My problem is to fill up all the postmortems, So the reality is this one. What should we put? Like it looks like we have a lot of technical knowledge.
Yeah.
Well, this is why business continuity needs business continuity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the whole thing of not. I mean, I don't know. I think have we discussed this one before? In terms of outages of infrastructure when folks have decided to put all of their eggs on one basket, a single provider. Most of the smart ones have their. I'm not calling anyone dumb here, but when it comes to critical systems, most of these folks have something on site, on-prem anyway. So,
yeah.
But there's also a lot. I mean, I think like e-commerce took a big hit, because all these folks is, you go to the cloud from day one, right? Because you don't know better.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's we got a lot of phone calls.
Yes. It's funny you say that. The smart people doing like a multi-cloud strategy or having on-prem and all that. I remember from, I guess, last week at the AWS keynote when they had, I'm not going to say the name of the customer, a giant stock exchange of some kind, where they came out and were on stage and they talked about how internally they said, well, we debated, should we have a multi-cloud strategy to make sure or whatever? But in the end, we realized there's only one, number one cloud, and they've got this, and we're going to just go all in and not do a multi-cloud strategy. 1 week later, yeah. But it made for good, a good event and getting people excited when they're on stage, feeling really bold.
Yeah. Well, these drive like really good and tough business discussions. Because look, I feel like half of the decisions of the, that make business sense are made to not spend money or something on something, or to basically, I don't know, outsource, some infrastructure because you think it's going to be cheaper in the long run. But it only takes one of these incidents to just obliterate that business case. I mean, if you're in the pool of folks that have recently migrated to a single cloud strategy, instead of your own team doing something on-prem, and this just lost your chunk of dough, you're going to revisit and say, man, like we could have done these things differently.
Yeah.
But that's Harvard Business Review should do another one of these.
There you go. Boom. Harvard Business Review for the win.
But we've known this stuff for a long time. It's just that there's still people out there who make really iffy decisions, like this whole single cloud thing. I mean, early cloud days, there are these folks who just were so excited about this thing called cloud. They went off and told their CFOs, we're going to go full on cloud. So they went through this process of, and it was actually a pretty ignorant process of porting everything into the cloud, and those projects ended up becoming just massive disasters. And so,
but because of, you mean you're saying that this was because of the cloud?
Yeah, there's certain people, CIOs, technical leaders, who basically jumped on the hype bandwagon of cloud, and their decision was, let's go with a single vendor, right? Cloud service provider, and then take all of our workloads, basically take all our IT and shift it into the cloud. And that was during this period when a lot of companies were outsourcing their infrastructure, and becoming more of a service, their IT organizations were becoming more of like service management teams. And so there are particular industries that were doing that. But there were also folks who were basically going like this whole cloud, full in cloud, with that kind of strategy, and there were disasters because they didn't think through, well, what's it going to take to migrate these workloads? And a lot of them were legacy. They're sitting on old machines. They don't just port over. Not everything is like cloud friendly or native. And this is like old school stuff, and then we still have people making the same mistakes. That's why like the whole JEDI contract is like, who the hell came up with the RFP for this thing? You're going to award it to one hyperscaler. It should be multi-cloud. And even from a procurement perspective, that's best practice, because each of these cloud service providers has a different price performance for each of their services. None of these things are equal, depending on the workload and the type of application. The benefits of one hyperscaler in a particular region or even location could be very different from another, right? Because you have to factor in network, blah, 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 especially for the traditional cloud computing. But now with edge, like the edge cloud, all that's is going to change, right? Is changing. And what was it? Adam, the CEO of, Solipsky, he said that, there's like 5 to 7% of enterprise workloads are still on-prem. And he goes, well, we have a long way to go. It's like, not really.
I thought it was a lot higher percentage than that.
Right there. Do you know what I'm saying? It's not. And so, I honestly think this whole cloud narrative is going to start to diminish over the next, the traditional centralized cloud thing. And it's obvious because these guys, all of them, are moving toward the edge.
Are they?
Outposts. They have like a.
Are they really moving to the edge? So, if we go back in time, so you're right. AWS got its start.
AWS is trying to put like friggin', the cloud on a car, run into a car
they're trying to do anything, and they're trying to put mainframes inside their cloud to get your mainframe ported.
Yeah, you're just, I don't know. It's almost like it's
a gold rush.
Know your place. Nobody
fighting words.
Nobody knows how to stay in their lane at all. They're like, we're gonna drive right into your lane and crash into you by design.
Accidents. And then you have outages, and you have all these other things. Technology should be selected for purpose, and there's, I don't know.
If you think back to the purpose, though, I mean, S3 came around like in 2005 or whatever, and that was just the first baby steps of what would become AWS. But if you remember, we had that giant financial economic downturn in 2008, and everybody's like, and it got a lot. And you talked about people outsourcing stuff, and you talked about people saying, we got to keep cutting costs. The sky is falling. And so a lot of them said, let's just get out of the IT business and upload all our stuff to the cloud. And so they started doing, and I don't have a problem with people doing lift and shift. It's like, because IT had already gone through the phase of bare metal on their, Windows servers and Linux servers, and they'd moved to VMware. VMware was a big beneficiary of virtualization, and so people were putting more workloads together on servers. And so the next logical step was, let's just lift and shift those virtualized images to the cloud. Don't change anything, which I think is probably the smartest way to do it. It's pragmatic, at least. And so I saw people getting out of the, trying to cut costs like crazy. And then obviously when COVID happened, I saw more lifting and shifting. You know what? I saw a great article. I don't know if you know who David Linthicum is. He's definitely, he's one of the top cloud guys in the world. And he wrote an article for InfoWorld, I guess yesterday, just about these overcomplicated cloud solutions. The biggest complaint you're hearing from hiring managers, CIOs, CTOs is they can't find talent for the cloud. And he's like blasting. Everybody is using bleeding edge technology that they don't need to use. Like within the setting of cloud, instead of just doing some pragmatic thing, they're like, we got to use Lambda, or we got to switch everything to edge native, or we've got to do giant Kubernetes clusters. And as it turns out, in spite of all the hype that people like us talk about, like just because there is this new bleeding edge way of doing things doesn't mean you should use them. As it turns out, the old ways sometimes work just fine.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't have this talent crunch if more people were just doing what's the simple version of going to the cloud versus let's have this giant Kubernetes clusters with 10,000 Docker containers being orchestrated and everything like that across, different availability zones. It gets so complicated. Right. It's hard to find folks like that,
Right. And then here's the other thing is people sat there and what they did is they went and they lifted and shifted and found out it's more expensive to run this stuff in the cloud, especially for, scale out workloads, right? Unless it's super commodity. And so, the thing is that there are,
but how do you compare, Leonard? How do you, more expensive than what?
They're actually tools. There was a company called, I forgot the name of it. Actually, companies like I won't name them because I don't want to plug any companies on this show unless they actually make a donation to elevate our kids. But there are certain ITSM companies, and a lot of them actually, that have developed tools for cloud economic or financial management, and there's actually ways to test the performance of different types of configurations, instance configurations, and basically do a price performance comparison, right? And not only from a configuration perspective of a particular system, the network as well. And so you can test that from different locations, and you can take that information and compare it with what your run costs are for supporting that workload on your own, in your own data centers, right? And so there are these.
Sorry. What do you mean by your own data centers?
Data centers. You're going to have
So the companies still have their own data centers.
Yeah, or colo-location or whatever. However you're hosting that workload, or wherever you're running that workload and the costs associated with it. Yeah, you can do a whole breakdown, and then you.
Yeah, of course, but that's cheaper than deploy these in the cloud.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is.
Oh my God, come on. Yes. And a lot, you know what? Look, what you have to understand is that, there's only so much benefit that is going to be passed on to you from a cloud service provider for, hosting this stuff on a virtualized environment. You can do that on your own. You don't need anybody to virtualize and actually create a localized. I mean, it's basically an edge cloud, but it's a private cloud. You can do that. Course. I mean, that's when you have companies like XYZ.
And we can host YouTube as well. We can
make a donation to elevate our kids.
But and we can make our own computers, right?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, and if you have and so. Make it, probably the wrong direction. I think the myopic direction for a lot of hiring, CIOs, is to assume everything is going to be in the cloud, especially when most stuff is not in the cloud. And to sit there and instead of focusing, taking more of a balanced approach in hiring people, let's say maybe you should have some people who are cloud service managers and kind of developers, I guess. But that's not, I think it's really people who can manage cloud portfolios, and then people who can do the traditional stuff, right? kind of balancing that versus going all in, and because we've already seen what happens, right, when people get super religious about a particular thing and they go all in. It's usually a disaster. Most IT organizations and environments are hybrid, and they always will be, and so deal with it.
This is what happens when you get super religious about Grove connectors.
Yeah. I mean, you know what? Because I've advised a crap ton of CIOs. I've advised a bunch. I've done consulting work, hands-on, like, portfolio strategy, blah, 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 all that stuff, cloud strategy. I always tell them, don't go nuts with this stuff. Okay? Make sure where you need to place your bets and which direction you need to go with this cloud strategy. The worst thing to do is just literally blindly go to the left or the right. It's disastrous.
I'm going to pick up on Mark's super sarcastic comment that I'm still enjoying.
Do it. You triggered me. I'm going to kick. I'm going to kick your butt, man. When actually, I shouldn't say that because this guy's like 6'9". He'll crush me.
Yeah, but you know what, Leonard? You might be faster. Never think the bigger guy. You can always take him down.
He's younger, man.
You learn this when you don't grow up in a nice neighborhood. Anyway, don't fear the big guy. Never fear the big guy. Yeah. No, but look, I cracked up at Mark's comment because if as a topic, it's this whole outsource, lift and shift cloud or just do it in-house. And the things like the economics are super wild. There's not a startup I've talked to in the last 10 years that isn't going cloud first. Why? Well, because it will make zero sense for them to do it. Staff, it makes no sense. But then when you swing the pendulum the other way and you have this, large enterprise that have traditionally, they've had IT and they've been doing, their own data centers or colo or what have you, the unit economics are super different from those guys. And I think my initial comment of this crazy outsourcing is we continue to drive things with a short-term view on gains and not a long term. This whole thing with the outage, I wouldn't even blame. I'm sure it was an accident. No one at AWS wanted this thing to happen. So, the conversation should be for, everyone else who's listening is, if you were affected, how do you mitigate for this in the future? If you were not affected, how do you avoid, being affected by something like this in the future? And there's no need to build the car yourself. But if you can, because it makes sense and you have the knowledge, and at that point in time in your business, it makes sense to build a car, go for it. You might give up halfway and then go like, okay, this is stupid. Let me just go to the used car lot.
Yeah, but don't say that you do the car because it's cheaper. It's a completely different type of costs.
Right. And that's what I mean. And it depends, that point in time in your business, because it's the cost of time. Do you have the people if you gave me all the parts of a car right now, dude, I couldn't put it together. I'll be like, that's a windshield. And let me go hire someone to do it for me. But someone else could.
But you've made a killer point, dude. Guess what cloud was really, really cool for in the beginning? Just immensely valuable for
porn page.
No, DevOps. And so
but DevOps didn't exist before.
That's right. DevOps did not exist.
There were sysadmins.
It did. No. It did, because I was there when it happened. I helped a major bank. I literally have a presentation that outlines DevOps like 8 years before it was coined. It was a problem that we had with the internet. And the thing is that what the cloud did was just made DevOps something a hell of a lot easier. Before, you had to really focus on configuration management, release management. You had to manage instances. You had to align that with the procurement process. And we didn't have, back then, we didn't really have like this idea of elastic infrastructure at all. I mean, you literally had servers, bare metal, and you know, VMware hadn't really taken off. And so we had to innovate and come up with new processes for managing these fast changes that were happening in web operations, right? It was constant. So it's not like DevOps all of a sudden happened. There were guys like me and Rob and others who dealt with like immense operational, just hardships and shit, basically, that had to figure out how to make this stuff work, because it was not economical, right? We had to figure things out. And when I look back at those days and I look at cloud, the biggest benefit is setting up a DevOps environment so that you can quickly you support agile processes. Before then, it used to be a bitch. It was horrible. And a lot of manual coordination. So it was really, that's why Agile had a lot of, challenges getting adopted, because people always thought about, from a development perspective, oh, these are the best practices, but you need supporting environments. And there's this whole life cycle that you have to be able to instantiate and then sustain. That didn't happen very often. And even now, and so that's why, that's number one. But what David just said, it totally makes sense for startups, because a lot of the stuff is MVP stuff, right? That's like dev. You have a DevOps environment for building your service. And then eventually, like you said, one of the things is that, people go, oh, well, Netflix puts all their stuff in AWS. It's like, no, Netflix actually runs their own CDN.
Of course, because it's cheaper.
Exactly.
Now,
why would
not
they
at the beginning? At the beginning, they were on AWS,
and then they pulled it off because it's cheaper.
Of course, because it's
right. So
it's cheaper. Then it makes sense when you get into a very big volume. Then it makes sense to make your own data center. But till that moment,
does that even make sense? That makes no sense, because that's not. Come on, that's not what cloud's supposed to be. Cloud's supposed to be cheaper, man. As it scales out, it should be cheaper. It shouldn't be more expensive than.
This is my comment about a point in time of the business. This is what I mean. A point in time.
So key.
That's what it is. And after doing a Google search, looking for a result that's convenient to what I want to believe, because it's how we research things. Apparently, the cloud came before DevOps. So. That's right. I like this chicken or the egg thing.
That's right.
No. It did. But what I'm telling you is that the idea of DevOps, we were doing it before that cloud and DevOps was even coined. I mean, I have the documents of the stuff that we were building and designing when I was at Ernst & Young.
I believe you, man. It's somewhere in a compact Presario.
Yes. No, not even. It's a Toshiba it's like has a TFT screen on it. Actually, it's a whatever. Even the crappier one, that was the active flat screen. I had a 2-hour battery life.
Not sure I understand all your points. First of all, I have like a quick question. Like when you talk about my own data center, you mean third-party data center, right? Like a company who's managed the bare metal, and you just
like Level 3 or Equinix or whatever,
or it's on a room on the office, and there is a bunch of public IPs pointing to my fiber in my office. Are you talking about that, or you are just hiring a third-party company to manage your bare metal servers?
That's like what I'm saying is anything but the public cloud.
I mean, yeah, we can have a discussion of
what you're asking me,
public cloud. So if you consider AWS, Azure, and Google
that's
Cloud
what we're talking about. We're talking about anything but the public cloud. And there's a lot. And the only point that I'm making is that when you go and you look at your IT portfolio, okay, you're going to sit there and make financial decisions on what is the optimal place to place that workload. And right now, and the CEO of AWS said only 5%, 5 to 7% of the IT workloads are in the cloud. And there's a reason for that. It's not because if the cloud was so great and made so much sense, everybody would migrate it over if the value proposition was such. But it's not. Right? There are definitely, if you are in the cloud game, you've actually worked with IT, like IT organizations, there's a lot of stuff that doesn't make sense to put up there. Right? And there's even more now that is not going to make sense to put up into the central public cloud. You're going to have it on-prem. You're going to have it, basically, it's going to be offload shit that you're going to do to an edge node. Right? And the pendulum is swinging the other way. But, the key utility, and going back to what I was saying before about the cloud, was it's DevOps. It's not necessarily economical, long-term placement of that workload there. You might actually do all the DevOps up there and then deploy the actual production workload on something that you own, either a private cloud, a third-party hosted, or something. I mean, there are IT organizations that just colo stuff, but they own all of the assets. They just hire somebody to run it. So there are all kinds of different, and some actually have their own data centers in a friggin' closet, and they manage that. They have their own data centers on-prem. So there's all kinds of scenarios, but the economics are different for each.
This infographic is out there, the cloud and the pizza. Like if you make the pizza yourself or just like get the ingredients. I'm gonna look for this because I what you described is out there, and I love that they use a pizza to compare it to.
I like that. Are you building the product? Are you buying the product? Or are you buying the benefit?
Yeah. And here's the thing. Most IT organizations, it's just like consumers. We don't need 1 million or 2 billion consumer choices. Usually you have developers who are only, and an organization that commits to a certain portfolio of technologies, right? They don't need like a gazillion different things. But I'll have to admit that one of the things that the hyperscalers are doing a really good job of just creating these tool chains that really start to make their stuff super sticky, right? But if you can't get those workloads that are already out, that the 95% that's not in the cloud, you can't get that stuff up there. Guess what? Doesn't matter. None of those tool chains matter. That's why these hyperscaler guys are all trying to get on-prem and extend their cloud frameworks out to pretty much even a car or even your device, right?
Or a telco edge.
Yeah. They have to figure out how to get out there. Otherwise, that cloud stuff, traditional cloud stuff, becomes kind of irrelevant over time.
Wow.
It's funny how we joke because it's real, the whole thing of this being someone else's computer. But I think the mindset of the buyer of this cloud thing is truly magic. Like we're still using words like instance and and container and whatever, but when I hear other folks talking about it, it's as if the physical computer didn't exist. It's become magic.
Containers,
and because it's become magic is what we default to. Because look, here's the thing: the hyperscalers have made it so easy to consume. Like, look, I can be out of university trying my first IoT thing, and with my debit card, I can go and just get an instance in a couple of minutes. And then copy, it's so easy. And we couldn't do that before because we have to go to Leonard, what was the big Fry's Electronics, right? Leonard, Mark, for you, I don't know what the equivalent would be in Spain, but if it was electronic, they had it in a single physical place, and each location would look different. They had pirate ships, they had UFOs, all sorts of things. But that's how we used to do it before. And so what I'm saying is that the frame of mind of consuming a cloud service is very close to magic today. And because it's magic, we're not thinking about what can happen when the magic goes away, because magic was sitting on infrastructure, but no one wants to have that chat and no one wants to diversify until this happens. And then we're having the Coffee Talk cloud infrastructure episode.
Oh my God, how do we get there?
Did you read the 21st century computer from Mark Weiser, like from 30 years ago? Yeah, you should read it. Just Google that. Yeah, he was a researcher on Xerox labs in Silicon Valley. And yeah, in the 90s, I think he wrote that in the 1990. And yeah, and he was explaining that, yeah, in the 21st century computer will be no computer, it will disappear. And he coined this concept of ubiquitous computing.
Yeah.
So everything will be a computer and a virtual interaction will become a physical interaction.
Yeah, eventually.
Mark Weiser, yes?
Yeah, indeed.
Okay, 1991.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, if you don't know it, I recommend to read it because it's really interesting. All of the points that he that he explains in this document.
That's awesome. I love it. I love it. What a rant we've had from Leonard Lee today.
I got triggered. I'm gonna.
Wow, he got totally triggered. He got off the rails about DevOps. CI/CD, whose cloud is it in any way? You know, is it magic? You know, does it make sense?
I'm still not sure if he coined the concept DevOps.
He did say that.
I didn't say that. I said that Google coined it, but we were doing it before.
Oh, okay.
8 years before Google coined it.
I remember when DevOps got popular, and I'll give you my cynical view of DevOps.
Do it.
When people started going to the cloud, a whole lot of, I mean, what do we have in technology, at least in the corporate world? You've got developers and you have IT pros. And as the cloud thing started to happen, a lot of people who were an IT pro who managed networks and servers and computers at a company started looking around going, oh crap, I'm not going to have a job because it's all going to the cloud. And at the same time, you're reading writings, it's like, yes, developers will be kings and queens because they create the world. And these IT pro guys might be out of luck because their whole job is being replaced by the public cloud. And so they go, how do we stay relevant? DevOps. Let's invent something to keep us relevant. And so stuff that a lot of times developers or people, they're the build manager when you're doing development, stuff like that would handle. And so it's like, let's give this job to IT pros. And actually, yeah, while DevOps, you'd think of it with the cloud, the quick pace of doing continuous integration and everything, you know where that really came from? It came from the smartphone revolution. It came from apps updating multiple times per week. It didn't come from the cloud. It got adopted in a giant way by the cloud. But this notion of always updating apps instead of updating it once a year or once every 18 months, that's a smartphone revolution thing. But no doubt about it, the CI/CD stuff in the cloud, it gave IT pros something to do because they weren't managing email servers anymore or anything like that. So there you go. Everybody needs a job, right?
Yeah, I mean, but we had to do that for web operations for the early .coms, and then we had to try to figure something out because it was not scaling. The back offices, just the issues. I mean, I have a whole list of crap that we had to respond to and coming up with the methods that we did. But no, I hear you, dude. But it really, you're right in terms of like DevOps and how it became popularized. You're right. It's like the app economy or whatever. I don't want to use that term.
Is that like the API economy?
Huh?
Is that like the API economy?
Oh my God.
Don't feel bad.
Like web services. No, actually, that's even better. Web services even better.
I'm all in. I'm all in with that economy.
It's the method economy, Rob.
Method economy. Method. Excellent. Yeah. Excellent. I love that.
You know, Rob, you know who should have joined the IT pros that changed their names to DevOps? The PBX guys. They didn't see it. They didn't see it.
They're like, boom.
Yeah, pretty much.
By the way, sorry.
Why are we so angry? Why are we so angry this morning? Look at Mark. Yeah. He looks like he wants to crush my head. And you know what's so funny is he looks so small in his thumbnail.
Let me say something. I feel super fascinating that how these cloud companies could educate everyone. So I feel really hard to educate people, right, with new services. Like, hey, no, this is a way to do better these processes or these things or that. But educate people who don't usually do things that way. It's really hard. So how much money costs to educate everyone? So almost every company has a DevOps that knows about Kubernetes, Docker containers, and so on, right?
Right. It's just some new thing that everyone's got to learn, and it's hard. And you have to go, sometimes those of us who've been doing this for a million years, you go back to your first principles and you say, was I able to build stuff that scaled out globally in the past before Kubernetes and all this stuff came along? Oh, yes, I was. But I got a lot of new people telling me I can't scale if I don't use this new technology. Yeah. And sometimes you have to throw the bullshit flag and say you're making it harder. Or I need everyone to learn serverless Lambda now overnight. And it's like, well, why? The jaded part of me says serverless is just another method by which a public cloud provider entangles you into their cloud and keeps you on there forever because you're tightly tying your application to their cloud, as opposed to building something that's portable, right? That could run in any cloud or on-prem.
Well, that even goes one.
I remember one sysadmin that we had that he was saying, well, from a data center that we were hosting the first version of the Things.io, and he was saying that 99% of their customers, they may run, instead of databases, they may run all the data in a file, and then with C, just they could access quicker to the data. And only 1%, that's okay. They could run a database, but the other ones, they don't need a database. Why they need to install a PostgreSQL or something like that?
Wow.
Here's I don't want to come. Let me say this way. You've captured me, Mark, again with how do you educate? Because we also have to think of why you educate. Yeah. So depending who I am. One. And what's the message I want? Well, no. Look, it's hey, the victor writes history, right? So there's also a business strategy to this, because if you don't have a chunk of the population that has been doing things with certain tools for a long time that have been proven, some good, some bad, some failed, some scaled, some didn't. And, now you have this, the new shiny objects that, again, are telling you do need to learn serverless. And it's all about a container strategy. There will be people that is what they're going to learn. And they might not see a necessity to revisit tools from the past. And, we do this for, Mark, once we're in the retirement homes and we see what our grandkids are playing with, and we're like, wow, they ate that up, didn't they? So to your comment of education, these are the things that hopefully, everyone, very few things come out of nothing today, right? It's an iteration, it's an innovation. Look it up.
It's an iteration. It's an innovation.
Well, didn't Rick share something on LinkedIn the other day about a submarine from like the 1870s? Now, Rob, you're the submarine guy. I wouldn't know, but I'm like, wow, like that's a long time ago before we had proper propulsion systems. But again, so let's definitely stay educated. But for those of you guys that have used the tools that have given us the web and the cool stuff that we have today, don't stop preaching about the old tools. So that
don't stop believing.
Don't stop believing.
That's maybe what I should have played instead.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. There's stuff that companies try to force down everyone's throats. And then there's stuff that just kind of magically becomes popular in spite of the best. So if you think about the World Wide Web and all the technologies from all the cloud providers and Microsoft and Google, in spite of their best efforts, who is still number one on the internet? WordPress, PHP, and MySQL, dominating the internet by far. It's not even close. Why? It's easy. It's simple. People want simple. People don't. It's like, should I build this with Kubernetes or should I build this with WordPress? I think I'll do my blog with WordPress.
Yeah. Well, it always depends on what you want to build, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You just need a CMS, a content management system that will have like thousands of visits per day. Yeah. That works, right?
Yeah.
If you want to build something else, maybe you need something else.
Right. Yeah. Why did access databases become so popular in the 90s? And all of a sudden they're on every Novell NetWare share. And the IT guys hated it. They're like, stop. But it was organic. Why? It's because it was so easy. It was easy to build those databases and easy for business people to build simple apps to do their job.
Did you just say Novell?
I did. Remember when everybody used to use NetWare?
Yeah, I must have a group-wise catalog.
You triggered me with your group-wise. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I remember like with Microsoft Mail, I think we had to, it was on the H drive or the L drive or something like that. Like it had to be on a certain share on NetWare where all the mail would be for MS Mail before we migrated to Exchange.
Lord.
Wow. I know. Good times, huh?
Yeah.
That's right.
I will have to tell people, so you guys are on GroupWise? Yeah, you can't do the BlackBerry thing yet. Sorry.
Sorry.
Man.
Sorry. Yeah.
We're old.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty much. Oof.
Next episode, we're going to be like...
I don't know what are you talking about, but yeah.
Email servers.
Yeah, of course.
Which is probably the ultimate
never saw that.
Cloud application, right? The workload.
It's like when I slam Microsoft and their developer ecosystem. I was like, you nailed it in the 90s with Visual Basic, and the whole world jumped on board. It was easy, and it helped Windows take over the enterprise. But then you got to the 2000s, and it's like, let's try to chase that enterprise Java stuff and be cool like that. And so they did .NET, and they made it harder and harder, and they got really smart people. And they lost the legions of developers who said, no, let's make it easy, like VB. Yeah. Easy is good.
And I think it's good that you lost that Microsoft lost a lot of developers.
They did.
For the good of the...
They lost a ton of developers. Exactly. Yeah, they lost millions.
Rob, don't you have to go?
Yes, I'm going to go here in a couple of seconds.
Oh, okay. Well, we're going to be off in a couple of seconds.
Yes, I have to go do a panel discussion with Eclipse IoT. I think we're going to discuss the Edge survey or something like that from what the developers thought. And so we'll talk about it.
I was reading the developers and companies surveys. Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Check it out. Everybody should check it out.
You should check it out. You should
about the three
change the channel and watch us in 10 minutes from now or less. It'll be awesome. And I will stir the pot as usual.
Yeah. But you know what? One of the interesting things that I don't know, I think it was you, Mark, that mentioned that it might have been you or David. I don't know. I'll have to listen back. But, we have a lot more choice now regarding education, when you have too much choice and too many things, education really gets tough because you have to figure out, okay, well, I'm only interested in this, and you're doing all this big picture stuff that sounds really cool on PowerPoint, but I only care about this. And so the challenge is going to be, how do you cater to different interests, these really specific interest groups, and then scale that out? Because you know what, I think when you have too many offerings, see you, Rob, we'll see you soon.
All right, adios.
That adds complexity, and that I don't think anybody has time to deal with if you're an enterprise, right? Theoretically it sounds great, but if you're a enterprise architect who's basically gatekeeping, their whole job is going to be, here, look, these are the things we're going to focus on, and it's going to typically be much more narrower than the massive catalog that any cloud service provider is providing, And so it's interesting that these portfolios keep expanding, but you're just overwhelming people. Do you know what I'm saying? And so education becomes even more difficult.
Yeah. Did you ever use the Amazon calculator?
Huh?
Did you ever use the Amazon calculator?
No.
I strongly recommend you to go to Google Amazon calculator. So you are going to get into AWS. Well, it's AWS, not Amazon. AWS calculator. So you are going to get in the website to contract AWS instances. Try to calculate how much are you going to pay. That's almost impossible, because they ask you that many questions that you don't know how many services are you going to need, how many machines, how many gigs of RAM, it's
I think that's common knowledge now, that no one knows how much the cloud is until you get that bill for that month, and you go like, oh, that's how much. Like that's the way to find out.
Yeah, but then let's go to the beginning of the discussion. So the do-it-yourself solution, sometimes it's even more expensive and worse quality.
100%. No, 100%. Look, I was just arguing for a point in time in the business that one or the other makes sense. I've seen both, and I've seen people start with the obvious wrong choice that fails, and it costs them too much. Like, if you're going to fail, like, at least fail and save 80% of the cost.
Right. But I've also the more detrimental thing, I think, is assuming that you're going to go full on cloud, getting rid of your IT infrastructure teams, and then finding out later, and then basically making everyone IT, or whoever you keep around, IT service manager, vendor manager, or service provider manager, and then at some point, actually it happens pretty quickly, going, oh crap, okay, so do we have any competencies on the infrastructure side? Oh no, we don't, because we laid everyone off.
Look, unpopular opinion.
To our managed service provider, and we don't have that so now we have to hire them back, or we need to call XYZ to manage this stuff at X times what their cost was when we had them as an employee. You know what?
Come on, that's not that extreme.
What do you mean?
You're pointing like extreme visions, right?
No, it happens.
No, you have seen
happens, man.
All the time. I'm telling you, people live in a kumbaya universe. If you've been in the trenches, and you really know how decisions are made, and how hype oftentimes in these techno-religious, affinities and actions based on them can impact an organization, developers usually, if you're a developer, you really don't see a lot of this stuff. You basically work against it, because you have this sort of vision of what people want, and it usually conflicts with the dirty laundry that your customer is usually dealing with, right? Or your prospect is dealing with. That's why, we always talk about this. We try to keep it real on IoT Coffee Talk, right? These are the realities. And so that's why a lot of times you butt your head up against, it's like, hey, this is like a no-brainer. Why aren't these guys taking? It's all this dirty laundry in the background, right?
We're done.
We're
with
done.
The laundry.
All right, who wants to take us out? This is Spanish Day.
Yeah, it's a Spanish day.
It's Mark's turn.
Okay, we'll do it in Catalan, I think. No one
do
will do it in Catalan, right?
Yeah, do it.
You gonna do it in Catalonian?
Exactly. Molt bé, hem arribat al final de l'IoT Coffee Talk. Si us ha agradat, subscriviu-vos, doneu-li el like, compartiu amb els vostres amics, envieu per e-mail, per carta, per colom missatger, com creieu més oportú. I ens veiem la pròxima setmana amb un tema que el Lennart o algú triarà totalment aleatoriament i ens veiem per aquí.
That's great. You know what? I'm always a little bit worried when you guys do it.
Yeah, absolutely. You should
when
today.
I hear my name come up, I think you just called me an asshole.
No. I just say today that, you can share IoT Coffee Talk to your friends by email, postcard, pigeon, or whatever you feel more comfortable with.
Oh, man.
I was just going to say adeu, which is adios. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I'll venture to say.
You guys are funny. Okay, cool, guys. Take care. All right.
All right. Cheers.
Bye.